So welcome to part B of series 2 of our Istation video collection. So in this video, we're going to look closely at the priority report, the student summary handout, and the instructional tiers chart. So the priority report, here's what it's good for. This report will help you group students by skill area. It'll also help you to gather some resources in the event you want to use them by student need. So you can get to the priority report simply by going from your classroom tab in the related reports box on the left and clicking priority report. Here's what it looks like. This report will continue the orange highlighting that we saw on the classroom summary report. So students that are determined to need critical intervention will still be highlighted in orange on this report. You're going to notice in the top, we're going to look closer at that in a minute, but it's going to group students based on need. This report always begins with excessive logouts or idle time. So there'll be a list of students in this box that are either logging out during the assessment or they're taking too long to answer questions. So that data will be there for you right on top. And then it will go into each of the subtest areas. So in this case, it starts out with reading comprehension. Underneath that will be vocabulary, text fluency, all the other subtest information. So let's look at that top box just a little bit closer. So here's what I was saying is that you'll have, for example, if I was looking at ISIP Advanced Reading the vocabulary, I see that 12 students have a need in that area. So you can click on these because remember, anything in Istation in the blue font is a hyperlink to more information. So if I were to pick one of those groups to look at more closely, this is the report I would get. This will show me which students have this need. So in this case, it was text fluency. And then you'll notice at the top, it'll give you some recommended teacher lessons. So just before we kind of go any further, I want to make sure to point out these lessons that are available in Istation are completely optional. So once students complete the ISIP, they're automatically dropped into their individual learning pathway. So there's nothing teachers have to do to assign activities or assignments for students because they're already working on the skills that Istation has determined they need. So these resources that I'm going to be showing you are simply optional resources should you like to use them. So if I were to click on resource details in blue, it will take me to additional resources that will populate. I took a really small screenshot. This was actually pages long of several resources, and it will populate them by grade level. It'll typically start 2 grade levels below and go up about 4 levels even above the grade level if you need them. If you find one that looks interesting, you can simply click on it, and then you have some choices. You'll be able to view the resource, download it, which then you can actually save it to your documents, or you can add it to your library on Istation. The other thing is you can see here, it will give you everything you need for this lesson or this resource. So in many cases, it's pages long. So if you have a small group that you're running, it might be a great way to use this resource. If you have another staff member who's working with a group of students, it's a great way to provide a lesson that's tied directly to what you're teaching or what your students need. Istation is also pretty smart in terms of it's kind of like Amazon. So it'll also populate educators who downloaded this resource also downloaded. So it'll have that feature there as well once you decide to view or download a resource from there. So now let's look at the student summary handout report. This one is one of my favorites. So why is it so great? It's a fabulous report to share with parents because it's really clear. It also is available in English and Spanish. It's another great way too if you have an IEP meeting or an SST meeting to get information from Istation to share with the team because you can individualize it, meaning you can print the report for just one student or you can print it for the entire class. This report also will show progress over time and it's color-coded. So you get to this report a little bit differently. It's not available on your classroom tab. This time you have to click on the report tab at the top of the screen when you're in Istation. The report tab will populate this. There's lots of reports available for you in the Istation program. You'll see the student summary handout report is right here. And once you click on it, it's going to automatically tell you that you have to customize this report before you run it. So anytime you see this red box or this red font pop up, that tells you you have to hit Customize Report. When you hit Customize Report, it will populate this box. Now, because I'm logged into Istation as a district manager, I have to do a little more filters than you will. Your class will already be available. So when I have to click targeted users, I have to select the school, then the teacher, then which students. You will just have to select which students. So your box will look a little bit more like this. You'll have your school listed, you'll have your grade level class, and your students will all be listed. You can select all students for this report or just a selected few. Once you've completed the filters, you simply hit Run Report at the bottom. And what's really nice is that this report will print on one page for each student. So here's a sample of what Istation provided of what this report looks like. Now, when the students actually receive the report or the parent, this box here will not be part of it. This is simply for teachers to help define what the different areas are. So I wanted to include the sample because it had some great definitions there or extra information. What I really like about this report is right here in the top corner, it's really hard to see, which is why I made it a little larger, is where you can find the Lexile level for the student. And on the teacher end, when you're logged into the program, this is in blue, you'll notice. So it's a hyperlink. Once again, when you click on it, it'll link you to books that are at that level. So you can share with parents if you want to share some titles with them. Just again, keep in mind the information about Lexiling. It doesn't factor in concepts such as theme or the higher level comprehension piece. It's more quantitative. So what's important to remember about this report is in October, when we have parent conferences, students will have taken the ISIP assessments twice. So they'll have a couple of dots on their report. So the way this report works is for each of the categories, so it starts out with overall reading, and for math, it'll have their math score, and then it'll have the subtest information. So you'll see here is text fluency, comprehension, vocabulary, and spelling, because we pulled up a reading example. The same will be true for math. They'll have the subtest for math listed. And each time the students take the ISIP, it'll show up as a yellow dot for each of the months. So you can see this student has taken this assessment several times because it's now close to the end of the year. And this blue line shows the trajectory, meaning that if students continue with the progress they're making on the ISIP, they will continue to go up and likely end up in the green. So the trajectory line just kind of shows over time, if students continue this pattern, that's where they'll end up. So for parents, it's nice to see what happens over time, for them to be able to tell. For teachers as well, are students making progress? Are they not making progress in the different subtest areas and in the overall reading? So those yellow dots will be very helpful. The other great thing is on this report, again, when you're logged in on your computer looking at this report, you can click on each of these boxes. You can click on the colored box for overall reading, the colored box for text fluency, whichever subtest area you're interested in, and you can get more information. So once you click on it, it's going to populate another screen. And then you can look at individual data for individual students, simply by clicking the little plus button, which is down here, for the month you want to see. So obviously for the most current month. So I'm going to keep us on overall reading, clicking on this box if I were there in Istation. And this is an example of what you might see. So for example, actually, it looks like I went to text fluency for this image. So you'll see all the information there for each of the subtests. And because I selected text fluency, it did highlight it in this greenish gray color. And then you can get even more information. It'll tell you what question was asked and what the answer options were and what the student selected, how many points they got, and how long it took them to answer. So if you really want that drilled down information, you have it. Now, again, I wouldn't recommend doing this for every single student, but if you do have students that you're kind of questioning the results, or you have an important meeting with the parent, it might be nice to have this additional information. And again, you can get there simply by looking at your student summary handout from your computer and clicking on whatever category or subtest area you want to dig in further, and then finding the little plus sign at the bottom of that screen. So if you want this report in Spanish, when you first click Customize Report, instead of staying in the Targeted Users tab, you're going to move over to the Options tab. And when you click on the Options tab, it'll right away populate with, you'll have the language option. Just select the drop-down menu and you can switch it over to Spanish. And then hit Run Report. And that's it. That's how you switch it to Spanish. And remember, you can still go back to targeted users and only print this report in Spanish for the students who need this report in Spanish. Here's an example of what the report looks like, and you'll see everything that was on the English version of this report is now translated to Spanish. So the last part of this video is looking at the instructional tier goals. This is important because teachers want to know if the students scored, for example, in a tier 3, they want to know how far away were they from a tier 2. So, and what are those targets over time? What are the benchmarks? So this will help us to clarify those 3 tiers. It'll show the ISIT benchmark targets over time by month, and they're color-coded to make it easier to see. So this is how you get there. From the Toolbox tab, again, right next to your Classroom tab, you're going to click the Toolbox tab, and it will open up. I'm going to show the example of math. So just to keep in mind, I'm not going to show the example of math. I'm sorry. Keep in mind, Istation is currently renorming the math goals for this. So they should have them up in a matter of time pretty soon here. But what you're going to do is, once you're on the Toolbox tab, you're going to select Instructional Tier Goals. And from there, you're going to have to select which product you're interested in. So again, if you're a K-3 teacher, you'll select Early Reading. If you're 4th through 8th, you'll select Advanced Reading. If you're Dual Immersion, you'll select Lectura Temprana for grades K-3, and Lectura Avanzada if you're grades 4 through 8. Then there also is the tab for Istation Math, but again, they're renorming those, so they should be available soon. So I clicked on Istation Early Reading. So now you can see this is what this chart looks like. You'll notice a couple of things. I'm in the overall reading, but I can easily switch over if I click the other tabs here to get to the other areas of the subtest for this assessment. You're also going to notice that the months show up on the left-hand side. So you can see as the year progresses, of course, the target gets a little bit higher because the idea is that students are making progress as the school year goes on. You'll see at the top that you only want to look at the columns for your grade level. So it goes pre-K to 3rd grade because I'm in the early reading one. So that's what the instructional tier goals chart looks like and how you can find it. So now Series 3 will be looking a little closer at some of the tools for Istation. Thanks so much for joining.